I had a friend in my ear. His name's Attorney Tom on TikTok and on YouTube. You're nodding. You're familiar. Very great guy. I reached out to him for some advice, and he was like, "Dude, get on TikTok. It's such an untapped resource. Do it." And I said, "Well, the video length is really short. I don't know if I can make legally accurate, helpful information in 30 seconds or less." He was like, "Ryan, try." I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." So I took those 5-minute IGTV videos I had made, and I just spliced up like 5 or 6 of the juiciest bits, and I threw them on TikTok, let it sit for a week, totally forgot about it. And then one day my IGTV wasn't doing so well. I got bored. I looked on my TikTok, 60,000 views, 40,000 views, 4,000 DMs. Like, it was bananas. It was absolutely, I was not ready for that level of attention. And when I realized that was working, I thought, throw the whole playbook out. We're not doing these 3 or 5 minute videos that no one cares about. We're not typing up blogs that no one reads. We're doing the short format, and we're going to make it work. And for the next, God, coming up on 3 years, I guess, 2-3 years, we kept hammering away at that concept. The short highlight moment. What is your problem? What's the law say about the problem? What can you do about the problem? That's the basic formula.
Yes.
And we've refined it over time. I still see some of my early videos from 2021 and I cringe a little bit. They're a little embarrassing. But you got to give yourself space to be embarrassing and to make mistakes and to get better with time. So and now we're here. Now we're sitting at 1.7 million on TikTok, over 200K on Instagram, close to 100K on YouTube. We'll talk about that. We've got big plans for the YouTube that I'm excited about. It's absolutely blown up.
It's crazy. You have 22.7 million likes on TikTok. I mean, that's unbelievable. So short format, but I think you actually make a really good point in that, Ryan, that you had to figure out what was going to resonate, right? You didn't know right out of the gate what was going to work and what people would care about, even the format, never mind kind of the topics, right? So tell us a little bit about how you come up. Where do you find inspiration for new videos?
Okay, this is a good one. So I am an employment lawyer primarily, and our practice deals with single event employment issues. That would be things like sexual harassment, pregnancy discrimination, hostile work environment, things of that nature. And we also have a PAGA and class action division. And this is where a lot of the wage and hour stuff comes from. People who aren't getting their lunch breaks, they're not getting overtime properly, seating issues, things like that. So we've got 2 branches in the law firm. Where do my ideas come from? Well, we look at the different causes of action that we're looking for. We say, look, pregnancy discrimination is a big problem. What are things that we wish clients knew before they had to come to us? What are things the clients are telling us about what happened? We can look at prior cases and say, wow, my client qualified for maternity leave under California law, but HR lied to her and said it was company policy, they don't do it. She believed them because there's no one else offering information. They don't teach you this stuff in school. The state doesn't mail you a pamphlet saying, hey, here's your rights. People just need to know this stuff. It's basic stuff. The average non-exempt worker doesn't even know when they're entitled to a lunch break. They've got an idea that they're entitled to it at some point, but they don't know when it's supposed to happen or what happens if they don't get it. So where do the content ideas come from? They come from our experience in cases.
Tell us specifically, Ryan, about some of your top performing videos. What were the topics that really seemed to resonate?
Okay, this is great. We find the wage and hour stuff does very well, which is good because we do those labor-based class actions. So these are excellent clients for us. I think my most viral video ever, if I'm not mistaken, was me talking about a common policy that employers have, especially big box retailers, where they say you're expected to arrive at work 30 minutes or 15 minutes before your shift. And they hit you with all kinds of ideological nonsense. They say it shows dedication, it shows loyalty, professionalism, be ready, but they don't want to pay for that time. Here's the deal. The federal law on this matter is very clear. If you're required to be on site and it's a condition of employment, meaning you will be punished if you don't meet that condition, it's paid time. That's all there is to the discussion. And it makes no difference if you're actively engaged in work or not. Once the employer says, I am seizing control of your time and telling you where you must physically be, it's compensated time. It's a big issue in these big box retailers. I posted that video and it blew up. 13.5 million views. People went crazy over it because it is such a common problem. And the only source of information people have is their boss, who has a conflict of interest. That one did really well. Another topic that usually does quite well is explaining to people that, yes, you have a right to discuss your pay and work conditions at work. A company policy that says you will be fired for doing so is not enforceable. I mean, they can do it, but they're going to get punished for it. Any topic we have that goes against decades of sort of work culture that we've been taught, especially if the law is at odds with that work culture, those do well. Anything that teaches someone something that surprises them is going to get shares. And your shares, honestly, are more important than your likes and your views. A lot of people get into this. I don't know what your other guests have said. They get so obsessed with the follower count. They get obsessed with the likes. They get obsessed with the views. And I'm telling you, ignore that stuff. Look at shares. Because if it's shareable, that means it's valuable. That means you taught someone something, or you made them feel better about a problem that they're having. And I'd rather have 1,000 shares and 10,000 views than 1,000,000 views and only 100 shares. The shares are where it's at. So those issues do well. And then anything pregnancy discrimination does well too, because it's such a rampant problem.
What's volume look like? How many qualified leads are you getting per week? Or
I'd have to take another look again. I know that we get at least 150, 160 hits a day. Now, how those break down,
like people reaching out?
Yeah, that's calls to the 888 call Ryan, and that's people clicking on our link on our website.
Could you estimate how many are viable, or how many of those are turning into paying clients?
It's tough because we're in the employment space, and we do get a lot of people who reach out because their manager is using a harsh tone of voice or is giving them attitude, and you can't sue for that, not without some more things going on. So a lot of that goes on. I'd say probably 5 to 10% distills down to, hey, these are viable leads. But even so, if we're looking at 3,000 or 4,000 total hits in a month on some months, you're still looking at a couple hundred viable leads. It's still more than we can handle. I'll tell you this much. My biggest problem as CEO of the firm generally, apart from making sure that we vigorously advocate for clients, and that just comes down to hiring the right people, it's still figuring out how to handle this fire hose of leads. I've spent the past 2 years trying to figure out the best way to handle, what a good freaking problem to have.